Good evening, fellow heretics. Welcome to Nerds and Heresy. My special guest co-host, Jagazus, is not with us. Not sure if he's going to show up at any time or not. If he does, more than welcome. But that's okay, because my usual co-host, Natty Nat, who originally was not going to be able to join us, is here to help me out. So
don't tell my professors.
Our guest tonight is TikTok's very own gay auntie. You know him, ShiningNathan. Before we bring him on, I flipped that intro around in my head. It was supposed to go anyway. Let's bring him on after the intro.
Do this.
Hold on to your butts.
Oh, hello.
I'm very tired.
It's
I
okay.
was going to say we've been on that heretical holiday all week, all summer. So it's we're getting back into the flow.
Just let it flow, my loves. And I'm very glad to be here. Hello, my love.
So, ShiningNathan, I think I've followed you for like 2 or 3 years.
Has it already been that long?
Isn't it crazy?
It's insane. But yeah, I've always been a big fan of your content and just your positivity and your energy and your personality and everything. Is very fun and has been all this time. So it's very cool to have you on. And you can talk to you in person for finally. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm well. I've been a fan of yours for a while now with your education on Christianity in general, which is something I very much love and adore. And I'm well. Today was a brunch/cleaning day and not a rest day.
Not a rest day.
Not the day of rest.
No, allegedly.
Brunch and cleaning.
Well, it was first brunch that lasted for about 2 hours of me reading a book and drinking mimosas, and then went into full-on cleaning, laundry, hand wash and stuff, hand laundry and stuff. I finished about 30 minutes ago.
I was going to say, with your wardrobe, I can't imagine.
I have come to note I wear very specific pieces for daily life. So that's a blessing.
Well, I've seen you in everything from like a 3-piece suit down to like the pajama slumber silks. And like I'm just like enthralled.
You always look so comfortable. Like
everything I wear has to be comfortable. No matter how extravagant it is, there has to be stretch because my body is like Oprah because I'm 5'4". So 5-10 pounds of weight gain is a significant percentage of my body.
I did not think you were that. Oh no.
Not either.
I am a small person. That is average height for us Hispanic men.
Now I feel like if I walk up to you in public, I'd just scare you.
Oh, not at all. Because usually I have Crocs now, but they're platform that give me like 3 inches. They're sandals.
I'd still be taller.
Most people are.
That's like 3 inches taller than me. It's like the first time.
How old are y'all? How tall are y'all? Sorry,
I'm
tall.
6 foot, flat.
I'm
no heels. I'm 6 foot tall.
Oh, and Ricky, you are not. You're 5'9". Y'all are much taller. I have a friend who's 5'11", another friend, a woman, and then another friend. She is 6'1". So I'm accustomed to being. Yeah, so I'm accustomed to being little.
It's okay. We have a natural tendency to be like the mamas of our group. Like we watch our little ducklings all the time.
You mean the tall people?
Because we little ones can be either very docile or very feral.
Oh, it's both, and
Very
also
true.
Sneaky. You'll just be gone, and I'll just.
We know where we're going, honestly, and honestly, we know where we're going. It's just whether you can find us in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find. We know where you are at all times.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So, Nathan, for as long as I've followed you, I don't know very much about your background or your story. Can you shed a little bit of light onto where you came from, how you grew up, all that good stuff?
Of course. Well, so I'm born and raised here in Texas. Grew up in South Texas, very, very poor. My mother worked two jobs. Then we went, took care of my grandmother. Was bullied at a very young age, even though I did not know what I did not want to accept what I was. That is why my ears are cauliflowered and my nose is a nice little, which is very annoying. No,
Did
the hump, the hump,
wrestling?
Did you do
huh?
wrestling?
Did you wrestle?
Oh, in the streets, yeah.
Honey. Oh, I took that the wrong way. I'm sorry,
Oh
man.
no, you're fine. Don't feel sorry. I'm not going to be offended by it. That's my.
Mm.
Everybody asked, "Did you do wrestling? Did you do boxing?" I was like, "Well,
Oh no.
in the streets, yeah."
Unintentionally, you were
Unintentionally,
great.
exactly. And
Oh
then my
no,
nose.
neighborhood boxer.
Yeah. You win some, you lose some. And then I was very spindly, and then I got very heavy. And then I learned being very heavy is very much an asset when the people you are fighting are, yes, stronger than you, but do not outmass you. But then I went to college for costume design and theater arts in Corpus Christi, and then moved to Houston after a bad breakup. To Houston on a whim with five friends. We lived in what we called the Muppet House. And I moved there with $200 to my name, working at Joe's Crab Shack. We're going to go in the full history a little bit. And then
Wait, which one? In Katy? In Sugarland? Which one?
at Guns Point Mall. Greens Point, sorry.
I've been to that one.
I worked there about 2009. I lasted 4 months and I was like, I'm out. I'll go work at Payless. And then I worked professionally as a costume designer. But then soon after all of that, I fell into the legal field, was in that for about almost 15 years, Houston for 7, been in, Houston for 8, been in San Antonio for almost 7.5. So, yeah, very Catholic family, though my mom is one of the ones that's like, my job is to love you. That is my job, period, end of story. And she is violently anti-homophobic.
Oh, good for her. That is awesome.
She will still try to throw hands at 71 if somebody even looks sideways.
Can we take her out? I want to take her out. Like, I want to take her out on the town.
Oh, she's wonderful. I love I got blessed by her, and she for all of her eccentricities, because she was born in 1951. She has been the best mother I could have asked for. And people ask me like, "Well, your father wasn't in your life. Is that a good thing?" I'm like, absolutely, because my father went to prison early on my years. I was from the age of 3 to about the age of 9. But I know he would have wanted me to be the boxer and all of that he would have wanted me to be. And my mom just literally, her version of parenting was try to make me a good person and let me be the person I was going to be. She would try to introduce me to things like she would try to introduce me to sports, like, here, let's throw the ball outside. And I would do it. I'm like, I hate this. And she's like, okay, you want to go pretend to be a wizard with the stick you have? I'm like, yes. So she let me go do that. And so that's my mom. And she's 4'11". She comes up to here on me. So we're not a big people. My father was this tall on me. I found a picture from my high school graduation. And so, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's my background.
That is fascinating. And I feel like I might just be stepping on toes in a second, because I want to know a little bit more. I do tend to pry, and you have every right to say, no, that's none of your business. So it sounds like, I mean, you did have, don't get me wrong, like, you had some tough moments growing up, being homosexual, being out there. I can't imagine a time when you were in the closet, because you just don't look like the type.
No. I get the sense of your next question.
Not how often was there a time at which they tried to deconvert you from your enjoyment of the male sex?
Not my mother. My mother, actually, it took her 2 months to realize I even came out. And it was the most delightful conversation with her. And our family is very pro-gay, period, because I like to say it has to be genetic because every 2 to 3 generations, there's at least in every generation 2 or 3 that are part of the LGBT in some way, shape, or form. But my own not coming out, I didn't come out till college, but that was my own stuff because, mind you, I'd been bullied for so long,
Right.
and I already had a cousin who was out, lesbian, butch as can be, and just everybody loved her. But it took me to kind of get. Plus, for everything, my mom let me pick which version of Christianity I wanted to join, and I chose Southern Baptist.
Ooh.
And not Catholic.
Not where I thought you would have gone.
No, same. And so I think I started about the age of 7. They were the only church that came to our government housing complex that actually like tried to play with us and like give us something to do. And so I wound up going, and unfortunately for them, I was going to everything. I did Wednesday, I did Sunday all day church, and then I started doing ministry, youth ministry, Christian camp every summer. But then, in the fact of doing that, I learn a lot, and the acquisition of knowledge has been my biggest thing. I love knowledge, but then I like to think critically. Wait, that does not make sense. And so, about the age, oh God, I was about the age of, because I'd been going for about 8 years at that point. So I had to be like 13 or 14. I was like, And for me, in terms of the Baptist church, and I didn't want to offend anybody that's potentially watching, but I find that the Baptist church, it's easier to dissect and break down because part of that is also has the non-denominational Christianity, which is more of a kind of not as a rigid form like Catholicism is. Because
Right.
Catholicism is a structured behemoth of it is. And when people think about things about Catholicism, like, oh, you see changes happen. Like, you have to understand, Catholicism has transcended a millennia. Like, things in that type of behemoth do not deconstruct easily. It is structured. It is built.
A king couldn't get out of a divorce.
Exactly.
It was itself. Yeah.
Exactly. And so people that seen these changes, like, what's not happening quick enough? Like, you have to understand the Catholic Church is moving at light speed for an organization as old as it is. That does not excuse its atrocities by any means, current and past. But then I was Baptist. And so some of the things, and then non-denominational, where it's more amalgamous, it's more free flow, and not, so you kind of have that way, you can chip at it. At least in my mind, that's how it kind of felt to me.
Yeah.
So you could chip at it easier. And that's when I started asking questions. Sorry.
Real quick, Jagazis just popped in backstage and bring him on.
Wonderful.
Hey, Matt.
Hello.
What's up? Oh, look at the chat. All my friends. Sorry, I came in. I was hearing demons or something. I just came in.
Oh, we can see the comments.
Oh yeah, surprise!
The comments to the
If
side.
there's any comments that you want to like throw out and like talk about, just let us know.
If you see any questions or anything you want to address, feel free. Y'all in the chat, if y'all have any questions for Nathan or anybody, feel free to ask. It doesn't have to be a chat, can be.
Yeah, don't let me interrupt. Sorry to throw the flow. You're right in the middle of something.
You're fine, my love.
Yeah, you were talking about difference between Catholicism and the Southern Baptist.
The capability of questioning Southern Baptism versus Catholicism, which is fascinating because no pastor agrees to everything in Southern Baptist Church, which means that whatever hole you find, another one will try and fill it in. But another one will also be like, well, no, that's not how it is. And they'll fill it in with a different color.
Exactly. Which unlike Catholicism, it is an institution, and just like it is an institution. It is what it is. And so there's no unless the Pope says it,
Morgan, it's
kind of not moving. Where all these other pastors kind of like, I remember the one conversation that really made me go, wait, because I've never really experienced the fire and brimstone part. Like, it was speckled in there a little bit, but there was this one moment. It was actually at youth camp which is the gayest place you can be. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Oh,
Yes.
oh my God.
I'm gonna put that out there. Anyway, we can go into further details about that. But it was this one pastor who I think was kind of going through his own deconstructing toxic masculinity before that was a thing, because he was all about kind of harking on men, which I was like, yay, feminism. But then B, there was this part where he said something that I had not heard. And he was like, well, if you do all this, and he's a jealous God, and if you do this, he will send you to hell. And then that's where the gears really started turning. And I was like, wait, he tells us that it's a sin to be jealous. Okay, but we are mortal, and it seems inherently wrong. And this basically the Euthyphro dilemma started coming up. I learned all that. And I was like, but it's okay for him to be jealous, but not me. The fuckery is that, first the fuck of all. Right. And that's where it started everything started breaking. And I asked, I was like, but wait. And the poor pastor was not expecting this from somebody who just watched VeggieTales. To be like, wait, that doesn't seem right for him to, The
cucumber's going to hell?
I know.
Hairbrush.
Exactly.
He's going to be a pickle.
Exactly.
It's going to be a pickle.
And looking at it later on, I was like, that was a brilliant form of propaganda, kind of giving you the medicine with like a lot of sugar.
It's so good. To this day, even I've gone back and watched clips and like just the nostalgia, and I'm like, it still holds up. It's still a good show. The soundtrack
still slaps.
Exactly. Occasionally I'll have songs pop in my head. It's not just from VeggieTales, but just like from those days. I'm like, well, here I am to worship. I am to. I'm like, what? That was
mine's always the nursery rhyme ones, like Father Abraham had many sons. Like out of nowhere.
No, don't unlock. That now.
Deep and wide still hits me sometimes.
No, I'd forgotten that one.
Especially if I'm like working out and I don't have music playing, like I'm walking up a hill or I'm hiking or something, and like my breath is like hitting the right, like it'll just show up.
I still remember that my old the youth wing of our church, and I'm like, wow. Occasionally those flash in my head. I'm like, I think they're all dead now. Because it was an older congregation. There weren't that many younger people there. So I was like, oh God, I do remember my youth minister being very hot though.
It's a thing. Why is that a thing? Like, is that, I mean, look at, okay, Dadpool might be able to answer this because you're going to school to be a minister, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're
Are they all attractive?
Or why is it part of the seminary process? They're like,
oh, you mean physically? I thought you meant like temperature-wise. Like, why are you so hot? Like, I don't know. Everybody's jumping up and down. There's a lot of friction. I don't know.
No, it's just like youth pastors are objectively attractive, and no one why. What's that?
I think it's there's a certain level of like grooming kind of ish. I don't know, like. You want like the good looking charismatic person to go on to be a minister. And that's why like I had multiple elders come to me and be like, God has chosen you for ministry. That's
what it is.
You know the Bible so well.
And you don't look weird. And we can put them in our
very pretty.
And I ate it up. Absolutely. I do think there's that definitely happens.
Which ironically is the exact same thing they do in the Catholic Church to try to get little boys to become priests, except they go a little further.
Yeah. The Catholic Church, I'm just, oh gosh. And surprisingly, thankfully enough, I did not go to many Catholic. I've seen them, but my mom never forced me to go to, and my mom's not one to go to physical mass because she said it's full of hypocrites. So she would watch it on TV. And that was her thing. She would watch it from the Basilica in Corpus and watch the mass. And to this day, she will never step into a church. She watches it because the Basilica now streams it on Facebook. And so she watches it on Facebook and she'll just be like, hey, do her little thing. But she does not like stepping foot into a church because it gets full of hypocrites. And I don't feel like throwing hands with hypocrites.
You know what? God bless your mother.
100%.
Every day. Cool lady.
She is. I love her. She is
amazing.
She has lived a life.
It does explain a lot of who you are as a person. Just knowing that you had this guard dog your whole life. Mm-hmm. It's very helpful. And
all
learn
the
to
women,
express yourself.
all the women in my life were my guard dogs. Like my aunt was so the quintessential. If you could take Ursula from the Little Mermaid and bring her into the real world and make her human, that was basically the whole energy my aunt gave off growing up. She was full figured, big chested, big bootied, and wore spandex with leopard print and had platinum blonde hair and Buta red lipstick and nails, had 4 boyfriends at one time. They knew about each other. And that was my aunt. And she was her and my mom would basically tag team fighting the other parents of the kids that bullied me. Because they wouldn't go to the kids. They'd beat up the parents.
Right.
And go to the source. And so that was my aunt. And then my mother's more on the more fashion-wise reserved side, but she's still thankfully she's not gotten the urge, but she still will throw down and throw hands. Because I have to remember my family is still technically cholas and cholos. So I'm like, no, y'all are in your 60s and 70s. Stop. Get in the car. And my grandma too. Like when my mom made a joke one time when my grandma was still alive before I came out, my mom was like, Nathan's gay. My grandmother's only response was another one. And my grandmother, same thing, strong-willed woman, born in 1914. And so, yeah, all of the women in my family have always been very strong-willed, very pro-LGBT. And I think because of my mother and my aunt, remember, my aunt's 66, my mother's 71. So they had a lot of friends and a couple family members that were gay and alive during the early 80s. And they lost friends during the AIDS epidemic. And my aunt and my mom were like, no, we literally went, because here in South Texas, nobody knows. And we didn't care. And so we held the hand of one of our friends who was passing. And so they're like, no, it's not our place to judge whether what you are is a sin. We don't think it is. We're here to love you. And my aunt's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to hell. I don't care anyway. And so they're polar opposites. So anyway,
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a couple of questions in the chat I want to get to real quick before we move forward. Serious question with the Roman Empire trend going on. Is it fair to say that the Roman Empire, both through the diaspora and Christianity, can be blamed for every problem throughout history?
Hold on.
Go ahead, Nat.
I'm gonna throw out a technicality in this. It says throughout history, the Roman Empire did not dictate history. History is beyond the Roman Empire. It may be old, don't get me wrong, and it may have a lot of influence throughout the world, but unfortunately, the Romans were not the first peoples and first religion out there. And because of this, no, humans are just vicious and cruel to each other. And that is just how it is.
And didn't Christianity arise in the Roman Empire towards the waning years of the empire, if I remember correctly, to where the Roman Empire was already splitting between two?
It was already starting to, civilized, civil wars.
Yeah.
And I think if it wasn't Christianity, it would have been something else.
I think something
sprung up and continued causing a lot of the same problems that Christianity caused. Maybe, I don't know.
I was gonna say I wouldn't fault the Roman Empire for all the problems of history. However, I think you'd make a harder case to be able to fault Christianity and its spread for anything post the Catholic Romans,
post origination of said religion.
Yeah. Starting with Paul, nothing's ever been the same. It's just like looking
Paul.
at Reagan, like anything post Reagan.
I do not tolerate Paul in this house.
And then
Paul's a little asshole, and I don't like him.
Constantine came over and took over Rome, and he gave just shit tons of power to the Catholic Church. He took land away from the Jews and gave it to the Catholic Church, like all kinds of shit. So that was a big turning point right there. Question for Nathan from Tanis. Do you know of anything that kind of was the catalyst that made you start questioning religion?
Actually, it was those waning years in going to the youth camps and then starting to pick at all of that and hearing about how God is a good God and all powerful and all knowing. However, he's still going to punish you, a mortal being, infinitely. Does not seem like a good or equitable, does not seem fair or good. And yet, and that was more the Euthyphroid dilemma, but then it was also like, you can do these things, you can be jealous, you can cause murder, but you're expecting us, though murder is wrong. However, you expect to punish us. Where is your punish? And so it was kind of breaking this down towards about the age of 13 and 14, to where then I kind of just became nothing for a while. My mom never forced being Catholic on me. She always would, of course, with the utmost of love, try to do a prayer for me whenever I leave to go back home, mainly for my drive home. But I know that's done with immense love, um, and not out of like, I'm praying for you. No. Anyway, but then afterwards, it was starting to re-explore religion in a new light as I'd grown as a massive sci-fi nerd. And there was a good chunk of time where I was pagan, Hellenistically so. And I loved it. Loved paganism. I think it was some of the happiest years of my life. Exactly.
It is fun.
It is fun. I loved it. And the one thing I will give about those older gods, they knew what they were in terms like, oh, they're dicks. Like, and they don't pretend to be anything with what they are. And I was like, and I respect that about both Greek and Roman gods. Like, no, they're assholes. They're assholes, and they don't pretend. Flaws. Yeah, they have flaws. They're very human. That are just very powerful humans and immortal, and they're not really here to help you. They made you, and they may care on occasion.
For funsies, they might pay attention.
Oh,
when they're attracted to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. God forbid Zeus decides he likes you. I don't know how it's going to end up normally with someone else being born, but we're not going to talk about that.
Exactly. And then it kind of has shifted in now that we're in the waning years of my mother's life. I've kind of shifted to kind of trying to learn the stuff I ignored. In like learning the rosary, because we know in another few months to a year, I'm gonna have to do the rosary for her. So I'm like, crap, I didn't learn that. And so I'm kind of like Catholic-esque light, and that's putting it just so I can do the rosary. But it's really kind of applying true science, not that bullshit they talk about the Creation Museum. And I'll say it, I've been to the Creation Museum.
Did you?
I did. Which
one?
It was the one here in Texas. No, not the Ark. There was one here.
You went. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, you went to my devil paradise. And then, oh my god,
it was applying genuine science to, and not making up some bullshit, but applying genuine science to Christianity. And literally it's like, okay, so science says as we get older, your perception of time speeds up. You don't have the same perception of time as a child does. And then so it's like, okay, so what is 7 days to an immortal, infinite being? And it was starting to apply, like, what if science is how God works in this world? What is 7 days to an immortal being trying to be like, okay, I made these things. Okay. To us, it could be 7 billion years, whatever. But it was just like, you don't have to make up bullshit to make everything fit if you just let it. And science doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your religion. It's just explaining, and what if all these things are how an infinite immortal being created things? It's how I've reconciled religion a little bit. Do I think he's currently influencing my life? Why would an infinite immortal being? Anyway,
because he's jealous and cares about everything.
Exactly. I'm like, and so when people ask me, I'm like, what if all these? Think of the Bible as mostly just allegory, and if you want to think of it as God actually inspiring people to write it, how do you explain how a car works to a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old who's barely like God's like, what was it? 7 days? 7 days. Yeah.
It was 7 days.
It was 7 days.
Give or take a few hours.
How did you make Adam and Eve? Well, I made them. Evolution, how he made them. But to him, it was like, snap. Okay, I'm going to make a sandwich. Oh, they're done. Like, I don't know. So it's just like, science. I'm science first. That's what this tattoo means. Science is
Ooh.
king over religion, and they
I'm
can coexist. But yeah. Anyway, long story short, it's been a process. I think as anybody who has had to go through their deconstruction of Christianity.
Sure.
Definitely.
Oh man.
That's interesting. There was another question. Oh, hold on. Where was it?
Speaking about Jesus' feet.
Was it about
Yes,
feet?
that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I need to do my laundry.
We
Let's
want to
just-
get into the feet.
So they're
So
right
on that-
here. And I have a foot finder profile now, so you can get all the photos of Jesus' feet.
For
I
24
think
Oh
what,
yeah, that's
what-
gross. Sorry,
Mhm.
not your feet.
Feet are gross.
Fucking Morgan, Adam and
Yeah.
Eve sandwich, kink or cannibalism.
Yeah, I think what Anton is getting at is really only applies in the Hebrew, not in the Greek. So in the Hebrew, the term to cover your feet is like ancient Hebrew slang for jerking off, right? So
Really?
yes. So when
Oh,
you
yeah,
read
right, we'll learn something
when
today.
you read Ruth, and Ruth covers Boaz's feet. Like they teach in Sunday school, he's laying on the ground and it's cold, and she lays over top of his feet to keep him warm. That's not what she's doing.
No.
It's not what she's doing.
No.
Yes.
When King David sneaks up on
Uriah.
was it Uriah who was in the cave? Not Uriah.
Yeah.
The
No, Uriah came to the temple.
the first Samuel or yeah, Samuel, the king before David. He snuck up on Samuel while he was in a cave covering his feet, and he cut off a piece of his robe and showed him later, look, I could have killed you. I snuck up behind you and cut off a piece. I could have killed you, but I didn't.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
distracted doing
He was in the cave
some
covering his feet.
masturbation.
Right. And there's other examples like that as well. Now, when
But
it
I was
gets
thinking of the one where
Oh my
David
God.
says Uriah,
Wait,
like,
Wait. So
go
wait.
back home, wash your feet at home,
Mm.
and then because like he was trying to get into the temple to have all the concubines, and David was like, no, they're mine. Only I can have so many concubines. Uriah, go home if you're so dirty that you need to wash your feet. Wash your feet with your wife, is what he says.
exactly.
But
So
Go ahead,
I
Nathan.
would push back on that.
I love how many questions are popping into Nathan's head right now. I want to hear them.
So Jesus washed a lot of feet.
Damn straight.
This doesn't apply in the Greek. It's not the same.
Oh, okay.
That's what I want to
I
push back
mean-
on, though, because
When
according
Jesus
to
washes
Francesca-
his disciples' feet, he's actually washing their feet. There's nothing weird.
I mean,
going
honestly,
on
it's
other than
a
he's
really
washing.
great act of service.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that was the thing.
In
So
the New
I would
Testament,
always
it's
say the
genuinely
same,
washing feet.
right?
In the Old Testament,
Okay.
I would say
I mean,
that's
I
a
do
Hebrew
actually-
idiom, and therefore it doesn't apply to the Greek because it's not how idioms work.
Mhm.
But and then I kind of thought about it more, and I was like, wait, the guys who are writing the Greek words were very familiar with the Hebrew. They were Hebrew scholars. So if they wanted to get a point across and use the Hebrew idiom, but in Greek, so that the Greek people didn't know what they were talking about, they could have easily slipped that in. But also, Francesca, I can never say her last name.
Stravakapulu.
Yes. She asserts the same exact thing in Anatomy of God, which
Yeah.
I did a duet video with somebody reading out a passage about how it's very likely that maybe not all the stories, but the stories like, you know, the sex worker, sinful woman washing Jesus's feet being very much not about washing his feet. And if you think of the imagery of like her hair fell into his lap and she was crying tears.
Mhm.
Was she?
I don't think I needed the demonstration, but I'm okay. It's fine.
So them being aware of it being foot and
I need a
Hebrew,
fan.
they were like, "Oh, we'll just slip that."
I need a
in.
bigger fan. Hold on. I'm going to
I need
grab
a
a
bigger
bigger
fan.
fan. Hold on. I'm going to grab a bigger fan.
We need a bigger fan. We gotta go full sweet charity on this. Okay, it needs to happen.
Also, I turned off the window unit in here, so actually I do need the bigger fan.
The Winder unit.
Yes,
Yeah.
that thing, because it
That is a bigger
really-
fan.
It is, and it's so amazing. There we go.
Now we got a reflection going.
I love like the light is now like just
Yeah.
everywhere.
It's very Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
The faces,
Yeah,
yes.
there's some-
Sorry, I'm going through the things.
There's some risque things in
Oh
the,
my God! If Quentin Tarantino directed a movie about the Bible, there would be some real
Quentin Tarantino.
work.
I think he
Quentin
should. I think
Tarantino
that would
does
actually
The
be a
Passion of
good
the Christ.
match.
I would be intrigued.
Yeah. I mean, he's retiring now, but
Is he retired?
yeah, he made his last movie like a year ago.
The Hollywood one, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think was supposed
I
to be.
mean, the Bible, if you look at it objectively, it's very metal in a way. Like it is very like, even if you just read it, it does play out kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Exactly.
And especially the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so question: do you know which Bible your Southern Baptist church read? Was it King James? Was it?
Yes, King James.
Mine was King James too. I was gonna say, I think Southern Baptist as a whole denomination is King James onlyist.
Yeah.
Queen
think,
James.
Yeah. King James. I'm just curious.
And not even like new King James. None of that blasphemous bull.
No.
it has to be King James, of course.
Yeah, of course.
I think I may still have it somewhere.
Oh gosh. Oh, I found my confirmation Bible. I found it.
Oh dear.
That's
so cute.
know. I was digging through a box that had a bunch of old photos in it, and my mom had snuck it in.
I love old Bibles. Like there's like something so not nostalgic because they're not even mine, but like my mom just brought home from my grandma's house because my grandma passed like a year ago. Just brought home her grandma's and my great grandma's Bible from like 1903 or whenever. And I'm like, that is so cool. It's like antique. It's like heritage or something. There's just
a
something...
novelty item.
Yeah.
I had like a little carrying case.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
I like that the green screen blurred out the angel. Like it was inappropriate.
I mean, technically,
There it goes.
that's canon. That should be canon.
Angel, you're not supposed to look at it. It's too holy.
Hold on. I have to put a sticky because my actual name is engraved in gold on it, so I don't want that.
Fancy. I didn't know I was talking to the queen.
But yes, it's the whole thing. And I had it like all
tabbed.
off. Oh yeah, I was tabbed. Oh my God, I have so many.
God.
I have so many notes in this thing. So many. But it is the New Revised Standard version.
Y'all,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to do tabs. Like, how do
I
you...
don't.
So if you go,
My brain doesn't work for me.
If you go to a Christian Bible store and you ask them to have organizational tabs for your Bible, they will actually give you organizational tabs with the names of the books on them.
I get that. I do get that, but I don't understand. Like, I always see Dad pull in his videos, he'll hold up a book like from
his
Bart
tabs are
Ehrman or
different.
something, and
These
he's like,
are
Mine are by topic.
that's what I'm saying.
his are
He
by
does it by
topic,
topic.
mine's
I don't
by
understand how you do that.
Because
You're just
I
like,
never remember.
red equals death. Or...
Kind of, yeah. Like there's
I used to
like
be able
the
to sing all the
pink
books
is all
before I
references to
couldn't anymore.
Asherah, and yeah, red is like references to God being evil or hell or.
My brain doesn't.
I try to color
take notes in like spreadsheet form.
Somewhat.
For those of you that know my background, I literally got this book. I was gifted it by my church, and then within a month, I was out. Because my questions, I did everything to go through confirmation because my mom wanted me to.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I got the book, I was like, okay, I have actual questions now. Damn it, Methodist, you can't hide from me.
Oh, God.
Anyway, it's around about the time I started getting kicked out of school for wearing evolution shirts, but that's besides the point.
It's totally different.
Not correlated at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
I was gonna say you kind of antagonized them into it a little.
Yeah.
I might have. Mom said I was
did.
okay. This was literally the year that we had moved to Vegas. So my mom was like, "You are such an angel." And then as soon as I lived in Vegas, she's just like, "I don't know what this town has done to you."
It's a town of sin.
It's the town of sin, and that's where I got confirmed. So I like to say I was baptized in dirty water.
Oh, that's fun.
I've been to Las Vegas several times. Wasn't as sinful as I thought it'd be.
It's not nearly as sinful as like
Dallas is more
I want it to
simple.
go hard.
Yeah.
Oh God,
Dallas
yeah, no.
is simple.
Well, yeah, Vegas, I literally see Vegas as just a gang versus gang area. It's just a giant gang, and then you go to like the Strip, and it's a bunch of prostitution. That's it. Like that's really it. The little cards, like you can collect them, I guess.
I collected a couple. I have those somewhere in when I try to do scrapbooking.
Goodness.
Well, I had someone come by my house yesterday and give me some free Christian propaganda.
A love letter from
JW?
A letter from Jesus.
Is it JW?
The Great Hope is all about how the end times are coming soon. The guy was like, if you look at everything that's happening, it's coming soon. This book will explain it all to you. I was like, okay.
It's like the opposite of hope. That's like the
Great Hope is that it ends. Oh, look at the
bedtime stories.
Mine get mailed to me.
Yours get mailed. Same.
Beginner study Bible. The dude hooked me up.
Nice. I still haven't gone through and done a video on all of the Ark Experience pamphlets and books that I said that I was going to go through piece by piece.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a video about the current September 22nd rapture date that's going around.
Oh yeah.
Because it was like the 15th and then they moved it to the 18th, but now they're getting ahead of it and saying like the 18th is not enough time. So 22nd at midnight. And it's hilarious because the flyer just says midnight.
Where?
Midnight where?
Which one?
Yeah.
But midnight will happen individually with God and them whenever midnight happens. Doesn't matter what time zone.
Okay.
Also, time zones don't matter to God.
I was gonna say, firstly, I'm sure they're only thinking American. But secondly, there's 4 different 12 o'clocks in America.
I mean, if I do get raptured, I'm gonna have a conversation with God.
You know what's gonna be great? This would be great if there is a rapture and like 5 people disappear and like the rest are.
They're gonna be like gay asexual people. Those are the 5 that are gonna disappear.
I know.
Someone who's never been touched. Like
better yet, one of the leaders was gonna come out and be like, rapture did happen. It turns out that I am in fact in love with this man.
I mean, imagine if it already happened 50 years ago.
My
We just didn't know about it.
My bed has rocked, and there has.
What if Amelia Earhart wasn't just like lost at sea? What if she got raptured while she was flying?
Fuck yeah!
It could have been then, but so few people got raptured. We'll never know.
Great aunt to come back. That'd be great.
All those people that got lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
That was just a rapture zone, you know.
Can anyone tell me why the Bermuda Triangle isn't such a big issue anymore? Like when I was growing up, quicksand and Bermuda Triangle were like terrifying things. Now I never deal with them. Actually,
I feel like there's still a lot of documentaries on the History Channel about them.
But yeah, it was like the Bermuda Triangle, big mystery area.
I thought it was going to be a bigger problem than it was going to be. And did I not know that it's expensive to go on a cruise, for one?
Just stay on land. You'll be fine.
I mean, the only way.
What if that's the conspiracy? The cruise lines were like, we want to go through the Bermuda Triangle. Everybody's afraid of it. Stop playing shit about the Bermuda Triangle. So
Wait, do they actually have a cruise that goes through there?
Oh yeah, of course. Not for the Bermuda Triangle, but they'll go to Bermuda.
I mean,
but don't they usually like avoid the actual triangle? Because there's like nothing there for like 7 miles straight, right?
There's a few of the Bahama Islands are there.
I do sort of miss the more innocent days of like coming up the Bermuda Triangle, quicksand, and the Bigfoot.
Yeah. They still have it. I promise you.
I just don't do cable.
I love it. Oh,
I was gonna say I got Discovery Plus, and that's all it is. It's all that and like the mother who killed her children.
Like, welcome to Disney. Folks, have the horror, all the horror.
There's so much more mystery back then.
Oh, I know.
Now it's just like, is that true? Google. Nope.
There's gonna be a TikTok about it. Hold on.
Yep.
There's gonna be a TikTok about it.
There's no mystery anymore.
That's it. ShiningNathan believes in the Bermuda Triangle. It has been said.
Y'all would be surprised about the random shit I do believe in.
No, you know what? No, great transition. Tell me about random shit you believe in.
I believe that Bigfoot does exist in some way or shape or form.
Okay.
Because for me, I'm like, I do not want to get rid of that little air of whimsy. Like, I'm very science-based, but I am obviously, I want to keep a sense of whimsy in this dang world. And so the Bigfoot does fucking exist. There are fairies in some way, shape, or form. And so, like, you know what? What else? What else do I think does
I rock with it.
It's just because, like, what life?
Why wouldn't a Bigfoot exist?
Oh,
exactly.
Because like so many different indigenous nations talked about them, and
exactly.
Like we don't search every inch of the world, so it only makes sense that maybe there's something hiding out there.
Well, okay, so the anthropologist in me feels like I have to point out the whole thing about how people do tell stories to each other, and those stories get passed on to the next group, and the next group, and the next group. So it might have occurred only once. But that person
could be extinct now.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a phone tree type thing. Like it's
But the other thing I would say anthropology wise is it's so widespread before communication, like whether you're in the Northern American area or the South America area, or you're like in the Alps, like there's a Bigfoot.
There's reasons for this. There's reasons. Because trade routes were a thing.
Were they?
Yeah. Oh my god.
You mean like somebody in, I don't know, upper Wisconsin in the middle of the hills was trading with somebody in Norway?
No, let me
rephrase. But across the Americas, especially.
Yeah, let's talk about this. There's an indigenous group in Wisconsin. You just said Norway to Wisconsin. I'm making that's the link.
Yeah,
okay?
I mean, I'm just
Norway to
throwing
Wisconsin.
it out there.
At this point, we know Vikings probably hit Newfoundland.
Okay.
Like we're pretty the consensus is pretty valid about that. So when they were there, they learned some things. They got some things. They traded some things with the First Nations people up in that area, right? So they get like First Nations people get like axe. There's randomly some wood pieces, a shield. I don't know, just some pelts, some furs from like way the fuck over in Norway, like Nordic wolf fur or something that you wouldn't find here in the U.S.
Yeah,
and they get the stories of Ragnarok, and they get the stories of fucking Odin and Thor and all of these cool stories. Which, when you are speaking a different language and you're trying to communicate these thoughts, a lot of puppetry happens, a lot of actions happen. Sure. And the stories that come from interpreting those stories is what sticks in those people's minds. Yeah. Now they have stories of these weird people that came over and told us these stories. And they have some stuff. And the Nordics now have a bunch of flint that came from this area, and they have corn, and they have.
Do you think the same would apply to, say, like dragons? Because dragons is another one that's been in every culture.
Very universal.
Yeah.
T-Rex skulls are the scariest things ever.
Well, yeah, if you were to come across a T-Rex skull, that would
because
for sure
there has been very big evidence about, like, especially like the Romans and Greeks having done archaeology and finding, and they do believe that like the Cyclops was actually probably like an elephant skull, but they did do archaeology of their own self because the elephants, they have a big old hole in the middle of their face.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no. So Jesus, because of their nostril, because of the muscle tissue that has to come through, their eye sockets are just divots that come. Wow. Their optical nerves go out and around towards the back, like the middle of their skull. But they have a massive nasal hole that's in the center of their face with giant tusks. Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So if you just saw the skull, no references beyond that except other big bones, like because their toes. surprisingly don't have like this roundness of a
No,
toe.
'cause
Like, the
they're-
toes are like multiple knuckles.
Yeah.
They look like knuckles because they're mammals. That's
Yeah.
one of those things. So yeah, looking at that, you get a cyclops. Looking at a T-Rex skull or even a raptor skull, you get different age groups and different types of dragons. Like when you look at hold on, I gotta think of like Spinosaurus, you end up with this weird beaked creature. So it's like, oh, there's these things that were like called like wyverns. Like they had wings. They looked like they had wings. They had really long legs, and they had like this hook at the front that looked like really big birds. So then you end up with these massive stories of huge birds that used to exist.
Like the Thunderbird.
And so like even like because I'm Hispanic and I'm Tejano, so in terms of the anthropology, it's a very interesting mix because being Tejano and being basically being Mexican, we are raised with this dichotomy of Catholicism, colonialism, and then this infusion of indigenous culture and lore that has kind of, and one thing that we can always give Catholicism is that it's very good at marketing. It's strong if it attaches itself to the most powerful nation. If not, it absorbs whatever's around and incorporates it with it. Oh, you like these gods? You're now a saint.
Or destroys it.
Or destroys it. But what is more? But then there's also
you get pulled in or you get pushed out.
Exactly. We have evidence that, especially here, but then there's also what is more cost effective. And so being like a lot of like we have our own magical practice within Tejano and Mexicanos. It's called curanderia and brujeria. But a lot of it is rooted in Catholicism, but there's a massive root that's part of the indigenous populations. A lot of medicinal herbs, but then you have that kind of overlay, like it's like a painting of Catholicism. Like, oh, you're going to do this herb to do this thing, but also pray to this saint.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's like saying, like, you're going to do this. This is a traveling ceremony to bless your travel. Great. Okay. Yeah. St. Andrew is going to be a part of it.
And so it's a very interesting, but then there's also the lore of like La Chusas, which I love the interesting lore that arises from it, because like we have things like witches, and the witches have a brujas, because there's a difference between a curandera, which means to heal, and a bruja. And a bruja, basically, I can give you the more, it's like a curandera heals and can do things, but not against somebody's will. So like say, if you believe in this type of mysticism, say you want Nat to hire you for a job, a bruja will make Nat hire you for that job. A curandera will like, okay, let's let Nat see the good benefits of you for that job and really lift that. So, but the decision's still up to Nat. Like this may or may not work, but we're helping the way.
So I've always compared brujas with voodoo in the Creole sense, because with Creole, with voodoo versus hoodoo, voodoo you end up with this controlling aspect, whereas hoodoo you have this naturalization aspect. And it is very interesting to
and there's very similarities. And actually, I've been doing more research on that side of more the combination of the indigenous versus the Spanish Catholicism side. But then because you have to remember that everything from like Louisiana and all that is a mixture of Spanish, French, and all of that is created.
Oh yeah.
And so there's the Catholicism, and then now you have. It's like when I bring up the whole topic about Texas and like all that happened with the Tejanos and the Anglos that murdered all of us and then subjugated us and became Texas. People are like, well, the Spanish did all this in indigenous population. It's like, yes, but I'm the byproduct of that. Okay, so there now has came another culture. Yes, there's wrongdoing, but now we're another culture, so we have to discuss all of this internecedness. But like to the culture aspect, there's a whole lot of lore that I'm like, I still believe in. And just because it's like my mom has always been about curanderia, like if you see an owl with two different colored eyes, that means there's a witch watching you. Be careful. There's these different little things, a part of lore, which I'm like, you know what? It adds both an air of whimsy and just kind of this unknown. More than likely, there's a practical explanation. I more than likely know the practical explanation. But, you know, it still gives me this ness to kind of like, you know, I still want to believe in it in a little bit of a way.
You know,
Which
one of the
comes
most. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, 100%.
One of the most interesting things was so I worked in Kisatchie all during the pandemic. So Kisatchie National Forest in Louisiana, right?
Oh, wow.
As an archaeologist, like just doing basic digs and surveys. But one of my favorite things was doing some cultural meet and greets, I guess you would say. There were a few sites that we came across that weren't super old, but they were considered beyond historic, that had been at one point burned down because of, a forest fire or something. And we had to kind of dig our way back to find out which culture was in there. And we came across there was this woman she was a Bayou woman. And by God, if I didn't think that I met a witch doctor, I don't know to this day, because she didn't use that terminology. I understood probably every other word she said, and I spoke to her mostly in French because that was the easiest way to understand her.
Yeah.
And she did say that she was a health mistress, which was her terminology, which I thought was very sweet. And I was just like, so like, were you a nurse at any point in time? And she's like, no. I just make people healthy. I make them healthy because health is a choice. And I was just like, well, that's interesting. But you go on. But she was the closest person to relate to this area. And her family had lived in her house, which had been constructed at the same time or within about 20 years of the burning of this other site that we had found. So we were like, she's got to have records. There's no way she doesn't have some sort of records. And she did. She had records of one of the churches, which was also the church, which was also the schoolhouse. She had records of just all sorts of really interesting things. But meeting her was just fascinating. And she gave me a bunch of information on like friends of hers who are also and have been around this area, the old souls of the locals. And I mean, being in the bayou during the pandemic, talking to some really interesting characters, I was just enthralled.
I would be too.
I mean, the stories alone.
I know. Oh God, I sat there and she made me some jambalaya, and I was just listening to her. I was like, I'm here for work, and she was like, you're not here with the government. It's like, technically I'm under a government contract because the area was for the Bureau of Land Management and the Forestry Department. However, I was there for the cultural resources. So I was there just to learn. And I was like, can you tell me everything about your family? And she's just like, child, I will learn you a thing or two about my family. But you're going to have to sit down and get your belly full before I even get started. Because it's going to be a long time.
And that's what I was talking about. My mom still uncovers some things. My mom's 71, born in 51. My grandmother was born in 1914. Like where she grew up, literally the highway that takes you from San Antonio to down to where I'm from did not exist. It was a dirt road. You went on carriage and buggy. And so, but hearing some of these stories, it's just like you learn so much more about the history that evolved. And we have a family cemetery, which I learned a lot more about my family and how much it did not branch. But
juicy.
Oh yeah, you got to remember that my mom's side. So one of the interesting things about because my father is much more darker complected, so you can tell he is much more of a more indigenous than my mother's side. My mother's side is much more like, but here I am in this middle. But my mother's side used to be very, very wealthy Spaniards, and so much so there's a small town in Mexico to this day that is named after the last name, which I will not say, but we do have famous family members anyway. But my great grandfather, whatever, moved into Texas when it was still part of Mexico, founded a ranch. There's the whole history of all the rich white ranchers that have big spaces now murdering most of the Tejanos out of the Texas War of Independence. Anyway, but I remember looking at one of the heads because we had these 3 generations of mausoleums, and that takes a lot of money to build mausoleums.
Yeah.
And so I remember looking in, you can see the headstones inside. I was like, you can always tell by the woman's last names, because it was like, what's her name? I'm gonna throw a random name, not to dox myself because it's not a big family anymore. What's her name? Garza. I was like, wait. So then I go to the next mausoleum, and it's like, what's her name? Garza. I'm like, wait. And then the next mausoleum, I'm like, what's her name? Garza. I was like, Mom? She was like, what, mijo? I was like, why are these three women Garza? She was like, well, it was a different time back then. And they were wealthy.
And it might just be because I'm a bit on. I'm just trying to comprehend. Mm-hmm. Am I to assume they all had one husband, or am I to assume they were like three sisters marrying three brothers types?
No, each, because there was one great grandmother, one great grandmother, one XYZ.
Oh, okay.
And so all of the three generations of first cousins.
Oh,
because they were Spanish and they were wealthy Spaniards.
Well, yeah, you got to keep it in the family.
Yeah,
you don't want that wealth to go outward.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And no, okay. So I just had to confirm what I was.
No. They were very much a Spanish model of, if you remember, the Habsburgs.
Oh, I've learned a lot about Habsburgs.
I don't know.
So, oh gosh.
I shouldn't have made that face. That was bad.
I'm sorry. I feel like I've gone onto a tangent. So, are there any other questions before I continue on to my family? That is many great grandparents ago. So we are now anyway.
That is fascinating. No, I guess we wandered off because I was just like, what oddities do you?
I apologize.
No, do not apologize. This is always fascinating because we're in the realm of cultural anthropology now. This is where
we're talking about trade routes, and I wanted to share something.
Oh yes.
Oh yes, please
go ahead.
There's a Bible verse about this.
Oh yeah, there are. Oh yeah, that was a thing.
Ooh.
Judges 5, 6-8. In the days of Shamgar and the son of Anat, in the days of Jael, and the roads were deserted, and travelers went by roundabout ways. The peasantry came to an end, and they came to an end in Israel until I, Deborah, arose. Until I arose, a mother in Israel, new gods were chosen. Then war was in the gates. So this is a story of trade routes, travelers meeting each other, exchanging stories about their local gods, and then not going so well.
Don't stop. The last two lines are important. The last two lines are very important.
The war was at the gates, not a shield or a spear was seen among 40,000 in Israel.
Trade routes were fucking peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, like they were about communication, exchange. It was all about cultural meets.
And so, Will, I want to interject this in that statement. In terms of trade routes and the original spread of Christianity before the organization of the Catholic Church, because we know once the organization of the Catholic Church, that's when things started happening by force. Do you think that the spread of Christianity more than happened organically via trade routes and not necessarily via conquest before it got more?
I do.
It's not an either or type situation.
Okay.
When an idea comes across, and this is just the concept, and I'm roughly quoting Richard Dawkins on this. When an idea is formed, it is only so long before it gets passed on, whether by force or by nature or by simply passive idea sharing. In this case, Christianity is that idea. The Catholic Church did it a lot by force and by mission trips. So they would, like I said, they'd show up and either you would accept it and they would incorporate your beliefs into it and say, yes, but that does involve this.
You're like, look at it.
But look at the comparison. And if people still question it, you're just like, okay, well, let's come over here for a second. It's like, fucking listen to us.
Come here.
Well, I would say that happened though later. Like that was, towards the Constantine era. But for the first 200 years, it was very much just established along trade routes. Like there's Christianity in Asia Minor. There's Christianity popping up in Egypt and Africa, and then all the way in the European countries prior to it ever being like a Roman adoption. And I think that kind of organic spread was very much just through trade routes. And there was no centralized idea of Christianity because there was no doctrine yet. There was no
it was just a
singular
pattern
view.
of storytelling. I mean,
It was
literally
still
that's
storytelling.
40 years
So-
after Jesus, right? There were still stories until somebody was like, "Oh, I'm going to write this down."
So I want to propose the question to all of you. I feel it to be an interesting question. Do you think another religion would have filled the void if Christianity had not come into being? And that, do you think another religion would come fill the void, or we would have stayed a more many religions just kind of coexisting ish?
Human nature requires a victor. Unfortunately, and I hate to say it, but our nature requires somebody to be a winner because we are naturally competitive.
I think that Rome would have still happened, and I think if they did not have Christianity to enforce, they would have enforced Mithraism.
Something.
A lot of people assert that like Islam would have taken over the world just because they have equal amounts of colonization going on.
But wasn't it young? But wasn't it young? It's
exactly, Islam started after Christianity, so
exactly.
I'm being yelled at by Morgan for a second because that passage has. Can you bring up his thing? The passage has a very between the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius vibe, which is a reference to Plato and the understanding of Atlantis, which was considered a uniform, not a uniform, not Unitarian, what is that? Utopia. This utopian idea of a perfect civilization. And I think what he's trying to allude at is the idea that when trade happened peacefully, we were in this utopian society, and that was the reference that Plato could have been making at that time, was that there wasn't war happening between people because there was intermingling happening naturally without any violence. But I also have to say, just because we're here in this moment, Nathan, I appreciate the Bigfoot comment, but if you think Atlantis was ever real, we're going to have some issues.
Okay, well, here's the thing. What if you want Atlantis to be real?
I wish it was. Don't get me wrong. I wish it was a thing, but it is not.
He wants it to have been real in some way, shape, or form in a city that was lost. However, I do not believe it was actually real. And it's like, I think it was more real in the idea of, this is what I hope would be a thing. Kind of like we do it today. Humans are very, we do it. People write the fan fiction of a thing they want or an idea they want. And so many people think that people from back then did not necessarily write an allegory, which I think everybody here knows that they did write an allegory or wrote like we did today. But it's like, what if this was, and I'm probably not as educated on the concept of, or the whole, everything about Atlantis and the debunking of it. But I feel like it was something he was like, this is something that could be, not what is. Or maybe it was his idea of a place he'd never been. Like, I've heard of this place, but he'd never been. Kind of like that story that was told over and over again.
I'm sorry. I'm getting texts from Morgan right now. He's like, "You missed my point." I'm like, damn it! I can't just work off of like one text and know what's going on.
Do I want Atlantis to exist? Yeah, because I'm that whimsy type of happy person. Do I think it actually existed in the way people want to say it did? No. Do I want it to though? Yeah, but because I want it does not mean it's going to be true.
No.
I'm holding out for the day we find it. Not that I'm saying it's real because we have to have proof of it being real, but I'm holding out until the day we have proof because I feel like there may be proof.
Though knowing if we found an actual Atlantis, it would wind up being like some Lovecraftian horror that's actually Atlantis. But I mean, I'm just going with the recent trend over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Aliens.
Which honestly, I love aliens. I'm like, well, yeah, duh.
My gosh.
In an alternate universe, Atlantis is real and is like, I wonder if America is real.
Can you imagine this one country only existing?
America's not real.
Years and still dominating the rest of the world. Like, what is this?
No, okay, so I was a Stargate kid. Stargate SG-1. So that's what I think Atlantis is real. That's the Atlantis I'm thinking about.
It's in the Pegasus galaxy. Okay.
Thank you. If you don't know, I'm sorry, but obviously you're not cultured enough to know.
Yeah.
Or educated.
Excuse me.
There are races that were actively trying to deal with the ancients. So, like, if you do not know, only those of us know who know. You know.
I am just
I don't. I'm afraid.
Yeah, Stargate. Yeah, everyone's just like Star Trek, Star Wars. No, Stargate.
I mean,
Stargate is better. I just couldn't get into it. I love Stargate Atlantis, like the movie, and that's it.
I mean, for me, the thing I will give Stargate SG-1 for the time, especially, it's like the people still built the pyramids. It was for the spaceships, but they still built those pyramids. So I'm like, okay, good. We're not like erasing the capability of non-Western civilizations to build massive structures. So I love that. But I also love everything else about the show. So I can go on an entire 2-hour-long rant about SG-1.
Same. And the fact that they use an archaeologist instead of just like a random scientist to meet the peoples on the planet.
Thank you.
Absolutely a thing. Like 100%. Being able to not like, I understand Star Trek's like, we do not show up to societies to make and like cause change or anything, but at the same time they stand out like sore thumbs
all the time. Every guy, and like I was a Trekkie for a minute. I'm like, no,
pop onto like a caveman planet with their phasers. Like, hey,
I'm like, you are actively making things worse. Federation, stop your shit.
And okay, and I have to throw a throw out to oh shit, what was the McFarlane just did the one.
And this is somebody with
the Orville.
The Orville did kind of a oh my god, you do.
This is somebody with that on my wall, but then I made that up there.
I'm sending you a puddle jumper. That's happening now.
Oh my god, please. Okay.
I need to find it because I knew there's a, you know, like the Metal Earth, the models. I think there's a puddle jumper one, and I'm gonna have to look it up and find it.
I want to find because the Goa'uld were my favorite species. That and the Tolan, but the Tolans were assholes. But I love them because they knew they were assholes, and I appreciate I appreciate a self-aware queen.
Oh, I'm getting yelled at again. I haven't
it on yourself.
Morgan, a puddle jumper.
We got a question: would water aliens still be aliens?
Yes.
It depends. Are they extraterrestrial or are they just alien to us?
Well, no, hold on. We use the term alien to us as just quite
literally. You'll send me a hot talk? Anyway, sorry.
A hot talk.
Sorry, I started looking at the
why you have to one up me? Morgan, why you gotta one up me?
I will
my friend.
So I think we got Wordski. Do we have it? Because I can talk about the subject of aliens because I've loved talking.
Oh God, yeah.
I've read so much sci-fi, but I've actually read a lot of hard sci-fi that explores and true sci-fi that actually explores the truly alien, not like which I love Star Trek, yes, but I love Star Wars, but I love Stargate's mine. But it's aliens that are truly alien that we could not understand. Can we communicate with them? Yes. But it's like this is a species that was born on an entirely different planet, under entirely different biology, under entirely different circumstances.
We're not even culture, everything.
Exactly. And so biology, all of that dictates what. So it's like, can we communicate with you? Kinda. Do you know what we're saying? Do you know what a peace treaty is?
The best description of this ever portrayed in a movie is Arrival. As far as communication with an alien species. That is the best I've ever seen.
In a book series for me, the last book got a little too much, too political. And I later learned that the writer is but it was the best representation of humans interacting with truly alien. It's the Star Carrier series by Ian Douglas. The last couple books lean very much into his political leanings, which are kind of whispered through, but he's the only sci-fi writer that actively explores humans interacting with the truly alien and humans understanding, like, do they actually understand? And in this humanistic society, monogamy's the taboo, polyamory is the norm, because we've reached such a level of advancement. Anyway, he explores these social, because I thought it was just going to be a shoot 'em up, and the religion is not allowed to be proselytized, which I was like,
please.
Please. It was under the White Covenant. And I was like, yes, please, Daddy. But Sorry, I hope that didn't cause anybody to get
That was
excited.
hilarious.
Oh, but it explored this whole idea of humanity 300 years in the future, but humanity interacting with, because I thought it was just gonna be a shoot 'em up space battle, and I was like, okay, that's what my brain needs for this road trip. No, it had a lot of, okay, these are aliens that grew up on a planet that is high in silicon. They are a silicon-based life form with this is what they do. And it was like, do we know? Like, it explored the truly alien and humanity being like, okay, but then also explored what type. Like, there was one species that was a mid-level predator that was the only one that could actually eat humans.
Ew.
And it was like, oh, you're little and pink and squishy, but had different ideas of what we consider morality. Anyway,
Have you read The Three Body Problem?
No.
That's the one I'm on right now. I'm on the second book, almost done it. So
No, hold
kinda
on.
like we were
Go
talking
back. I
about.
need the name and the author.
The Three Body Problem?
The Three Body Problem?
Yeah, by it's a Chinese name. It's a Chinese author, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But that's the name of the series and the first book, so you should be able to find it. And it was written in China and then translated here, and it kind of like blew up here. They're working on maybe adapting it to a Netflix series, but that will come. I don't know how they're going to do that. But it's kind of like you're saying in the sense of the aliens aren't so foreign to us that we have trouble understanding. However, it's a book about like really real physics, like it's deep into the physics of it. It's just like going on about math for 2 pages. And like they basically, I don't know, it sounds realistic. Like in the way the science is presented, it's all very like the person who wrote it is an astrophysicist. So, there you go. Yeah, there he is. Xin
Lu. And that's the same thing with this book, because it does approach the physics very well, like Alcubierre Drive, all that. But then it also explores like, what would it be like for us to interact with a species that evolved in a gas giant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of how the Three Body Problem.
Yeah, and it's like,
what if they had 3 suns and the 3 suns rotated into entire civilizations worth of darkness? And I wrote that down.
What was the name of the author of the book you were talking about?
Douglas something.
Ian Douglas.
That's
Ian Douglas.
In the last book, his political leanings do kind of shine more, but the rest of the series is very much plays on this. First, it's on the human changes of society, and because he acknowledges like climate change is going to wipe out most of these coastal cities. What happens there? Blah blah blah. But then it talks about what about meeting the truly alien, and some of these creatures are very alien. Like he's writing them, and it's like there is no way. Like the gas giant creatures that evolved in a gas giant, they are truly alien. They are the size of skyscrapers, and it's like how. And he actually explains their view of the universe. Like they do not see rocky planetoids as planets. They only see gas giants as planets. And they're like, well, there's vermin that surround that planet, and they're talking about us as because they're the size of fucking skyscrapers. So what the heck are we gonna look like to them? And to them, they don't communicate via audio.
That's the ant and boot issue.
Yeah.
That's just an ant and boot issue. It's fine.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's
understand you're now a spike. Nuclear threats no longer like ant, now problem.
Yeah.
You are snake bug.
Kind of like that, but even then, like humanity isn't that far in advancement of them. It's just they're so big physically.
Yeah.
But there's so many other species we interact with, and I was like, I loved exploring that. But I also loved exploring the idea of religion in a world where proselytization cannot happen.
I was going to say that's where the Three Body Problem has some really interesting philosophical takes too, because in addition, obviously, to being like a physics sci-fi, it's very driven on philosophy, and like where it starts is like current day. The second book is more like in the future in this off-world society they built. But the thing that's so interesting about it is since the author is Chinese, it's like a whole entire different world view than I'm used to, right? Coming from like this atheistic society, but still has a lot in tradition and culture built into like how people should behave and how people should act. And I would say it's a little critical of the Chinese government, but not really, because it has to be past their censors, right?
Yeah.
So like the way that that's all layered and the implications of that is like looking at our world currently from a different point of view, and then seeing how that might affect 300 years in the future if we're coming at it from a Chinese angle. And I'm like, that was probably more interesting than the aliens to me.
I love that. I can't
There's
wait
a
to buy
show on Netflix, and I will say the writing's a little weird, but the concepts are really interesting. That's called Another Life. And if you haven't seen it, you really need to watch it.
I'm writing that down too.
They did kind of rush the ending, which is unfortunate. And they like you could see that they were trying to build it into multiple series. They only
I was gonna say it was supposed to come back and they canceled it.
Yeah, so they just like, but it's okay because the way they ended it kind of did sum it up, which is fine. But like it was very Game of Thronesy, like throw it together type thing, which is unfortunate. But Another Life does this amazing job of showing how it is unpredictable as to what kind of life you're going to come across. And what the definition of life is, because one form of life is entirely metallic. It's weird and it's metallic and parasitic and doesn't have its own like and it's like what's the term for it? A hive mind. So like there's no individual. But then there's others that are like us, experimenters, collectors. And you watch as one human gets dissected over and over and over again, but they have the healing capability to like put them back together. So they're like, well, what happens if we give them this? And like they're torturing these humans.
But they don't.
And you're just like, and like you can tell they're doing it for science. And you're like, oh God, what do we do to these creatures? But like the roles are reversed, and then they're stuck in this. Anyway,
I was gonna say that's our problem. I think as humans in general, is we come at everything from an imaginative point of like all we know is carbon.
What are we gonna do? We're gonna cut it up. Yes,
we're gonna do that.
We're gonna cut it up.
But I mean, like in terms of proposing alien life, we're always coming from a carbon-based life form. We're always thinking DNA. We don't even know what would happen without DNA. If we were to take out a chemical and replace it with, which we did find one species here on Earth that has
RNA.
Yeah, arsenic instead of one of our pieces.
No, it has RNA. It uses uracil instead of thymine, and it's
I'm talking about a different one.
Yeah, so it's
I'm talking about the arsenic based.
Wasn't there
in California lakes?
Wasn't there a man
it's one of the archaic? Yes, there's an archaic bacterium that does that.
Yes. So like if we were to have that, but make it 5 billion years in the future, how would it evolve if it was based on just an arsenic based DNA and not carbon?
Yeah.
Like we don't know. We can't even imagine it. We're trying to imagine. We can't.
I was gonna say, wasn't there a guy who like had all of his DNA zapped out of him through some crazy radio like nuclear reaction, and it was like all you know what I'm talking about, Nathan?
Yeah. I wind up down.
There's like this Chinese guy, and all his DNA was just like zapped out of his body, and his body was just like falling apart.
I was going to say, how do you survive?
He was in like excruciating pain, but the doctors were like keeping him alive for as long as they possibly could to study him.
So what happened? So yes, I do know what you're talking about. This is in reference to a radiation test, and it was radiation. I don't know if you guys know this. Radiation breaks down proteins and breaks down DNA as a structural agent as a whole, which is why the Hulk does not function as muscle. He would function as a pile of goo. You're welcome to my TED Talk about how Marvel isn't real. Anyway, so these gamma radiation alpha particles are so destructive to our DNA that it literally causes us to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And this guy, I guess, volunteered to, because he was like on death row or whatever, he was willing to let them study him. And I don't think he realized that what he signed on for was that they were going to try and keep him alive while being tortured. Like he thought he was just going to die. Like, but they kept him alive as long as they could. And it was
I mean, there's been several, because like I wound up down a rabbit hole because as I do.
I want to get into like technicalities of how weird and horrific the human race can be to each other.
Oh no, we can be the most beautiful and loving species, but also we can also be the most horrific. Hold on, I can't switch back to StreamYard. Let me switch back. There we go. I did. Because like there's several incidents. Like there was one where they were testing a new type of reactor that was much smaller, but that somebody got irradiated and most of the workers died because of a screw or because of a screwdriver. And then there was one, I just looked at the one in Japan in 1999. There's a lot. I wound down a whole rabbit hole of radiation stuff because I'm like, it's fascinating. It's amazing because it started with Higuchi. There you go. Anton commented it. But then I was trying to figure out the difference between fission and fusion reaction.
Right.
Which is so fascinating, and I can't wait. But I feel like we could get it if capitalism wasn't a thing, but that's just me.
Oh yeah. What would we be like without capitalism? What would our cultures be like without capitalism?
Can't even imagine it. There's another
Can't
one.
even imagine it.
We don't know about DNA versus carbon.
Actually,
we don't know about capitalism.
And I will. That's a different rabbit hole. But there have been some hints as to what life would be like without capitalism, based off of some native peoples in. Let's see. There was a few that were in Africa and a couple that were in the Amazon. That
well,
the Inca
didn't have
past
examples, but how would that apply in a modern world? We couldn't even picture.
Well, but that's just
fathom.
As soon as any civilization or any sort of people or culture is discovered, our instinct is to interact with them. And as you can see, sometimes it works out swimmingly. We show up and they just incorporate themselves into our world. And sometimes we get shot at by a bunch of arrows. And sometimes if you haven't seen that picture of the plane that flew over.
Honestly, 100% valid reaction though.
It is. Oh yeah.
Fucking bird of prey, bring it down.
Like I'm not on TikTok, I can say it. If I got killed by some indigenous people because I wandered wrong in the Amazon rainforest, still why am I in the Amazon rainforest?
They have that right.
I'm like, honestly fair. Honestly,
I'm not walking in to save your body. That's not happening.
No, I wouldn't want you. Honestly, fair. That's my when people somebody asked me what happens if you ShiningNathan got super well, you blew up, got super well and became part of that class, and we started eating the rich. I'm like, eat me too. I have very Morticia and Gomez Adams vibes. I don't know if do it. You're eating the rich. Do it. Stick with the plot.
I would have started inviting people in and be like, you know what? We have our own charcuterie.
If not just
here.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Anton.
Oh,
for saying you like me.
Fan of Jiggy.
Well, he is very handsome. They are very handsome. So we have a very beautiful and handsome group here today. But it's just because I already told people I'd be a very chaotic billionaire if I became one.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And I would be such a menace to my fellow rich, because I have a full plan. I have it now. If I became Jeff Bezos wealthy or Oprah wealthy, I would, because in San Antonio, there's this area within the city, in the middle of the fucking city, that's full of nothing but these big mansions on acres of land. That's much needed. It's in every major city. And I was like, I'd create a DBA, buy one of the mansions, tear the bitch down, demolish it. And I don't care who I'd have to bribe. I'm very chaotic good, or ends justify the means. I don't care how I have to bribe, sleep with, use nature's credit card to get that rezone to multifamily housing and get that alternate, either a massive, low income housing or many small little houses. And I do that. I form multiple DBAs.
A commune, a homeless, a non-homeless commune.
Or that too, or just build houses and sell each house for $10K. What the fuck? I'm a billionaire. What the fuck do I need that money?
If I became a billionaire, one of the first things, if I want to solve homelessness, I would probably buy the Habitat for Humanity and just fund it. Just fund it.
I
And-
would buy
and-
every single rich person golf course inside the cities, because those are like miles of land, and
Yeah.
just turn them into houses.
Golf courses are such a waste of land. It's insane.
And there's the most
They're a waste
boring
of
sport.
environmental like
Your
resources.
dumbass sport really
hugely
needs
problematic.
like 20 square
Yeah.
miles to play.
I don't get it.
Yeah, no, they're
I don't get it.
they're hugely problematic.
I've done, because I was a marketing director before becoming a content creator, so that required me going to a lot of very rich spaces because I'm very charming.
I mean,
but-
I took I took etiquette classes from the DAR when I was a child. Okay, I do know how to be a Southern lady. Okay,
And the thing I've learned is that most of these people are more dirty than you think they are. You just gotta
Oh
play
gosh,
it. Anyway,
they just hide it.
but
You just know how
I've
to
gone-
hide under layers.
I've gone to these golf tournaments, and the most boring sport. I'm already of the mindset like I can have fun anywhere if you give me a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of wine.
I like how this one went from wine to vodka to whiskey in one.
You can see the whole trajectory of my life in one sentence. But like, because the only thing I did at that golf tournament was literally just sit in the car and drink while these bigwigs talked, and then I would talk with the people that actually make the decisions, their office directors and their managers, and be like,
Right.
"Well, this
They're making $60K or less.
yeah," and I'm talking with them like, "Yeah, we would really have to. Yeah, we need you. He doesn't know we need you. He's talking with that guy. We need your help," because I worked in law, and so it's like I would talk with them and like, "Why don't we just like set up a meeting for you and I and him?" And like, "Oh yeah, cool." And we getting blitzed in this golf course on this golf cart, just like. And my attorney, who I took there just so we could have a pretext, I'm like, "You're here just talk law with some of these people. I'm here to do the business." And he's like, "What are you gonna do?" "I'm gonna be tipsy on a golf cart. Go play your little golf game. You like this. This is fun." And he was like, "What?" He was like, I was like, I have go, baby.
I'm a network. You go be business.
You go show that we smart. You go show that we smart. I get them into the door. Go do the thing. But the fucking golf course, it's in the middle of like there's so many in the middle of San Antonio. And San Antonio's grant prices are going up. It's fucking San Antonio. And there's several good landlords. Like my landlord, actually a good one. Like you can tell he's an older man that just wants enough to kind of like live a life. Like I met him. He drives an SUV that's probably 20 years old. And like my rent is significantly cheaper for a 2-bedroom apartment built in 1910 than anything around. And so he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to make much. It's just enough for me to, live a life." And I'm like, "You know what? I like you." He's like, "I haven't raised the rent in like 6 years." I was like, "You're a good guy." But anyway, yeah, no, all these, because there's like 3 within like several mile radius of where I live that just take up a lot. We've gone askew, I feel, haven't we?
Golf courses? There's 3 golf courses?
There's one.
your
There's
area?
one. There's one in Alamo Heights. There's one in Almost Park, and then there's one just a little further. Because I live within the city, so it's like these are. And then there's like this gun range. What is it called? Where they do the
Shooting.
pull, yeah. And it's in the middle. Like there's an area called the Quarry in San Antonio, skeet shooting. And it's one of the oldest ones, and they keep it in there. They keep it there, but it's like a lot of mileage.
Yeah.
And occasionally, if you're at the Quarry, it's like you hear gunshots, and I'm like, wait, it's the skeet shoot range. It's in the middle of the dang city. So,
Yeah.
It's a lot in a small area.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what did I-
So it may have gotten askew of the topic we were at.
Oh,
Okay.
I guess there was a joke earlier on that somebody said that we have now reached the nerd part of nerds.
I have to forewarn you. You have to control me. I have severe ADD. So.
Oh, same. Actually, all 4 of us.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I'm not on my meds today, so I'm actually not even like zoned into anything.
I'm not on medicated at all. So.
I'm in grad
just
school, so I'm
dying.
very medicated right now.
You're dying, Rick.
Yeah, no, I'm falling asleep. So
He's got
Oh.
4 kids. He's dying.
That is fair. I have
it's been a long day. So yeah, I am going to want to wrap this up here soon, but we're good for now, I think.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I need to, okay. Nathan, you and I and Morgan need to have a chat about Stargate and anthropology.
I'm down.
Like
I'm down. I love anthropology.
I don't know if you know who Morgan is. If you pop into he's ArchaeoWolf Observations. He's also on TikTok, has like 400,000 followers. I'm not sure where he's at anymore, but he basically fights idiots with that try to do cultural resource theft on a daily basis. And yeah, that's a thing.
It is really a thing. It is such a pain in the ass. And like right now, like I've entered my not fully villain era. It's more I'm fighting idiots. Yeah.
I had to
it's
step
inevitable.
back
Like in the world we live in right now, like there's so many of them.
No, I'm literally because I'm in the middle of grad school, I've had to back out of fighting idiots just so that I can get a little bit of sleep.
It drains on you.
No, it's gone.
And that's why honestly, that's why I don't talk often about like racial, because I'm Hispanic. That's why I often do not talk about racial issues, especially in the last like 6 months or so, because I have a lot going on in my daily life, caring for my mother's hospice. But to have to deal with what comes up when I bring up a racial, religious, or political topic.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those, I don't want to call myself a content creators. It's like, set it and forget it. You deal with it. Occasionally, I like to I'll stir the pot in the comment section. So any of my followers watching, I'll be like, if I see somebody say a shitty comment, I'm like, I'll comment on it. Because it'll put, when somebody looks at the comments, it puts it right up and like, deal with it, babe. You want to say that stupid shit. So now you got to do it. But it is just so emotionally draining when you care a lot about the topic. And especially, like I did the post about that guy from England. What's his name? Jay from
Russell
England.
Rand?
Not Russell Rand. It was the Jay from England who was like, "You Americans, why do y'all do this?" And
Josh.
Josh from England.
The very loud blonde boy.
Yeah,
he was so funny, and then he got all weird and misogynistic and anti.
And I made a post. I made a post about it. Like, okay, regardless of what you think about him, I was like, regardless of the issues he has, how would because he wanted to move here. And immigrate here, what do you think the reaction would be if a dark-skinned Mexican man had done this? The types of jokes, because like a lot of his jokes were low-key, if you know British humor, low-key making fun of us. Like, oh, y'all are not as stupid as I thought you were.
This is a great example. So this wasn't recent. This had to been like April, May-ish. You outed, I guess, that one. She's the British lady that does the.
Oh, what's her name?
Always has the hijab on. I can't think of her name. Sells the
Overload Comedy.
Nessa.
Nessa.
Yes. Yeah. And she gets away with so much shit because she is of color, of ethnicity. Like she goes after stuff and then deletes it, and she's like,
you're attacking me because I'm Muslim. No,
exactly.
Babe.
No,
that's not why we're attacking you.
The consequences. And I dropped something. I didn't outright call him out. It was the how would you have reacted? And the reactions most of the time were positive, but there was enough where I was like, you are lying to yourself if you think it would have been the same. Because one person was like, well, I would tell him the same thing I would tell the brown skin Mexican. As long as you're doing it legally, I'm like, you would not tell him that because a lot of people are automatically assuming that he's going to do it legally. Why are you automatically assuming that he's going to do it legally? Mm-hmm. Why is the reason?
I mean, honestly, with his privilege, he could just come over here.
I was saying, dude, he just needs to walk around. You'll never get questions.
And I posed
if anything, he'll get a lot of he'll be like, "Oh my God, you're from England!" Like no one's gonna ask him for a green card. They're gonna be like, "Oh my God, that's so cool."
Yep. And so, I brought up that question. People are like, "Why do you gotta make everything about race?" I was like, "Babe," and I made the whole post about this. Like, I did not make anything about race. I'm just pointing it out. We did not. Who actually made everything about our current society based on race?
Your worldview is what's causing you to think that he's bringing up race when in fact you're just ignoring its existence.
Exactly. And I was like, and finally, several people were like, I see it now, which was a blessing, which is why I try to come at an educational standpoint. I was like, you got to understand, some rich old white men from like 300 years ago or 400 years ago made everything about race. They built an entire system. Everything. All of it was based on race. All of it on the color of your skin. From the ground up. And it's kind of comical that you think because desegregation happened, that you think it just ended. Like, you forgot those people that voted for segregation. Some of them are still alive. And then
some are still in office.
And some of them are still in office. Some of them were in managerial positions, were police trainers, firefighter trainers, doctors, lawyers, were managers, directors. They have been in this throughout this time. So it's kind of comical that you think that this all just ended with this one event. And my mom actually remembers a time when there were still signs in windows that said no Mexicans allowed. My mom was born in 1951. So it's like, which I get for a lot of people's older, and I was literally her last egg, but it's like, it was like all these people that were just, because one thing I love about people is that nobody is truly dumb. I do not believe that. People have infinitely amount of intelligence. However, it's what is the system that has prevented them from being able to see past the boundaries that have been imposed upon them. And
you always judge a fish by its ability to ride a bicycle. He will always look like an idiot.
Exactly. And especially like when you look at people like somebody who is, for just a case in point, who lives in some podunk Alabama town. We already know the United States is not built for you to travel between cities easily, not built traveling between towns easily. Right. So what is their entire worldview going to be? And the one beautiful thing about TikTok is that it's allowed people like, oh, fuck, here's the rest of this world that I am physically incapable of seeing. And they start niching away at that bubble that they have been stuck in. And then the more people that they have try to enforce upon themselves start expanding from, either religiously, culturally, in terms of all things. And that's why I think a lot of people want to get rid of TikTok, because it's like people are getting to see the world that they cannot experience due to the limitations within our countries.
The ideas are spreading. The ideas
are
spreading.
And experiences are spreading, and people are able to empathize with people they've never met before and see lives. Because I'm like, nobody's truly like my brother, my 54-year-old brother. He is a redneck in the utmost extreme. My mother married a white man, had him. Anyway, he is able to move past and learn. He is learned things that I cannot learn. He knows mechanics that I don't know. And do I know how to work on cars? In a remedial way. I can change things, but he has a level of intelligence in certain aspects that I do not. He is still smart. He is ignorant in other areas, but not others. And that was based on his upbringing and the life that sheltered him from it. So, anyway, my own little diatribe.
So, yes and no, Teeny. Just because their ideas are spreading doesn't mean that governments are not using this to their own benefit. No. That's the thing is people think it's an either or situation, and it's really not. It's an everything situation.
And do I think China's using our data as much?
They're collecting it, but
I don't think China already is a very big world player, and we import so much. I'm like, we already basically have economic control of you.
Side note: did anyone realize? I don't know if it made news, but I'm so in class we're doing a bunch of environmental policy stuff, and we're talking about population dynamics and stuff like that. Did anyone realize that India has overtaken China as the main population of the world?
Oh, I thought they were for a while.
They have for the last year and a half. They've had more people than China.
I was gonna say a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I was completely out of the loop. I had no idea. That was just like a random thing that was thrown at me, and I was like, "Wait, hold on, go backwards. What? China doesn't have the most people anymore."
Yeah, no,
Hold on.
because China is technically in a population decline, so they're like
Yes,
really,
because
really
they're-
stressing on
yeah.
getting more babies.
Right. And
That's the whole
part of-
Olympics in Beijing. That's all they did was just like propaganda for like make the future, have all the kids.
So
Children are
that's just-
beautiful.
So that's just it. Is so part of the whole mining data thing from China is the idea that they are trying to find what we or what the world likes and incorporate it into their own civilization so that it encourages people to move there.
That's fair.
They're trying. There is so when it comes to these concepts that like the way you just have to watch the way media phrases things. China is mining our data. Well, how does one mine? Well, you find gold and you put it in a box, and it's back there. It's in the box. Now you have gold. It's in the box. What are you doing with the gold? It's in the box. It's in a box. Like I'm not doing anything. It's just there.
Yeah.
Same thing with the data. It's just.
And I think for me, it's China. I've thought about it in a way. It's like because the biggest export the United everything is culture. Is culture and media and movies and things like that. We have been able to, like, I've seen it in terms of right-wing propaganda from people across the pond. It's like you're saying the same thing these people said, but a week later. Like,
right.
That is our biggest export outside of military might, which fair. But I also see that China's like, because is a war with China realistic? Unless something catastrophic happens, I personally don't think so. It's not necessarily within the best interest, and that's what people, and not necessarily smart when you can just get the data, see what people like, and start influencing culture to start bringing people to your country and start influencing more of culture around the world, like the United States has done. Because the United States has exported culture.
That is what the data is telling me.
Yeah.
When I look at it. What China is doing is quite literally adapting themselves to be what we want in the future.
Yeah.
They are trying to surpass the US in the marketable range. Especially now that we have enough data showing that the US is not perfect.
No, and it is not. And
yeah. The world knows this now.
We've lifted the curtain. We lifted the curtain. But then on the other end,
TikTok needs to be banned.
No. But on the other side of the spectrum, it's like now China is trying to influence the world to incorporate itself. In that incorporation of the world, then export itself.
Yeah.
Because what is the use of that data if not to be used?
Exactly.
To be exported. Because as somebody who is a marketing director and a director, all of that. That is what you did. For us, I worked with only small to mid-sized businesses, I would mine the data from my larger competitors and then see, okay, what demographics are they using? What demographics are they targeting? Okay, those are not the demographics we are going to go for because we cannot outspend those law firms because they have multi-million-dollar budgets. So we're going to outsmart them. We're going to mine the data, see what's the demographics they're not touching on. Then start targeting those. But then we're going to start targeting the ones they're currently targeting, but in a smarter way, in places that these people are not targeting them at. And then incorporate our messaging to outshine in a better way, not through advertising, but through education, through networking, to outshine my competitor. And that's how I took most of my law firms from law firms that made maybe $100K in profit to over $2-3 million in profit in my first year. Can I do that for myself currently? No, but
you just have to learn. Well, no, but see, that's because you are capable of creating a profitable market with that particular background and status. Now, if we were to turn you as a person into your own business, your own concept, I'm sure you would do great. But we have to be able to know what are you selling that creates that. That's the trick. And
exactly. And that's kind of what I think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And I think that's currently right now what China's doing. It's like now you see a big influx of a lot of people becoming more. This is in China. This is more like Japanese culture in terms of anime. K-pop is Korean. There is J-pop, and there's more culture coming out of China bit by bit in terms of influencers going there and a travel destination. And so it's like, me personally, like, we're going to see the rise of the East again, which I'm not mad. If I have to learn Mandarin, I will. It's going to be hard, but whatever.
I hate to cut you off, but I have to jump out just because.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
think we should start.
But I love you all.
Actually, we can tear down.
Love you.
Nathan, I need to give you my info. I'm gonna
Yes,
throw
please.
it in the private chat button.
Yes,
But we
please.
need to have a meetup and do some stuff. My parents and my sister lives in San Antonio, so it's kind of good to know that you're down there. One of my many sisters. Side note, you don't know this. My mom married into the LDS.
You can hop out if you need to.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Go,
Sweet
go.
dreams. Have a
Bye.
good night, my
I love
love.
you all.
Love you, baby.
But yeah, so I go
Oh
to
no, as the child of unofficially 20 siblings, my father was very handsome, very charming. I understand.
It's
As
all you, Tanis. It's all you.
yay.
Yeah, Tanis, it's all you as well. I have to get back to stuff. That's why I'm giving Nathan my info.
Thank you.
And calling it good.
I think we should. So
Yeah.
this was wonderful. I'm gonna take a picture of that.
My phone is in there. You can text
Beautiful.
me anytime. But yeah, so Nathan, thank you for coming and hanging out.
Thank you. I'm sorry I may have made it go very roundabout and ADD.
Oh, I love it. I love
That's
topic
okay. That's
switches.
how the show usually goes.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad.
No, it's better when it goes this way versus when we're trying to find topics to talk about. That
We
gets
touched
weird.
on a lot. We touched on a lot. Well, thank you so
Well,
much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This was really cool. It was good to finally meet you.
It was a pleasure
Um,
meeting you both.
And thanks everybody in the chat for watching and sticking with us. Appreciate you all. Stay tuned. I've got next month, I've got Dr. Matthew Monger coming on 1 week, and another week of Dr. Robin Faith Walsh is going to be coming on. So yeah, I got some fun things planned, so stick around. And here's a quick reminder that I don't know how to end my shows.
Hold on to your butts.